Top story of the day. Trump's now been in office for 100 days. How many days was that, Joe?
$1,400,600,000,000,000.
No, just 100.
2008.
No, 100.
8.4.
How would you even gauge 8.4 days? No, he's been in office for 100 days. And we've kind of talked about this a little bit in the last couple of weeks as we're ramping up to the first 100 days. What grade would you give him? Mine's easy. I give him a B. Not a B plus, not a B minus, not an A, not a C, not an F. I don't even do D's around here. But you can't give him an F because period, point blank, end of story, just shutting down the border was totally worth it. You can't give him an A because we actually haven't balanced the budget or cut the deficit or even solidified the DOGE cut. So if they get settled, then your only real argument against him having an A would be what's going on with the tariffs. And that is like a legit concern now. But as we've said 1,000 times on this show, I bet you in 6 months or a year, we're not talking about tariffs at all. This is a negotiation tactic to create a pain point, to give them some leverage in negotiating new trade regimes with all of these countries. And I bet you we're going to start seeing some of them announced real soon. Now, the reason why you haven't seen them announced already is because once you give away the ghost on what you're expecting a trade deal to look like, that'll be leveraged by people who are still in the dark about what we're asking for a trade deal. And we may get a better deal if we hide what we've cut with other people. But here is the frustrating part. Every day of this guy's first 100 days has been negative in the eyes of the media. And I know you forgot what that's like because we just had 4 years of the media being so deferential and coddling of the presidency. They're pretending to not notice that he was a mouth-breathing window licker by the end of it. In fact, that's going to be like my second topic where they dupes are lying to you. But yeah, stick around for that. Newsbusters keeps the count. Newsbusters.org said the negative coverage of the first 100 days of Trump's administration, this was published this morning at 7 a.m. The news was 92% negative. 92% negative. And actually, that is just from the network news. That's just from ABC, CBS, and NBC. Now, the numbers don't change a whole lot if you add in CNN and MSNBC because their viewership is not only smaller than Fox News, but Fox News' viewership is less than that of ABC, CBS, and NBC. Actually, each one of those gets about the same amount of people as a Fox News. But when you combine all those up, ABC, CBS, NBC, they average 19 million viewers in this first quarter. So they are the most widely watched news programs in the country. To give you an idea of where Fox News is often at, around 4 million. Bad day, 3 million. Good day, 5. So not only is it more than Fox News, it's multiples of Fox News. It's about 4 to 5 times the size of Fox News, and 92% of it was negative. Now, here's how it's going to be couched in the media. Let me give you Rachel Maddow from last night. Man, she's such a good source of sound bites. I feel like I'm cheating using her. But she's going to come out with her 100 days and the reason why she thinks he did bad. And what makes her a hack is you already know what she's going to say. She's going to say it's bad. Not only is she going to say it's bad, everything's bad. There's not one good aspect of it. There's not one shred of evidence that you can find that Trump did anything that one person would like. And if that's your take on this, then you're a dishonest hack. Well, let's go through this here. You're going to love it.
Today's yet another day of polling that confirms what is now validated by every major poll that has been done, heading toward the 100 days benchmark this week.
Listen to that. Validated by every poll that's been done. Everybody agrees that everything he's done is unliked by everyone. That's a ridiculous stance, but she tries to make her case. Listen to this.
New Washington Post, ABC News Ipsos poll. Do you approve or disapprove of Donald Trump? Disapprove by a 16-point margin. Do you approve or disapprove of Elon Musk? Ooh, look at that. Disapprove by a 22-point margin. Yikes.
Yeah, so approve or disapprove. Now, it's not even close because 6 months ago, when we all had to go to the ballot box, more people approved of Trump than not. So, yeah, you've been bashing him with 92% negative coverage for the last 6 months. You're going to get a few people to come off of their starting block there. And why Elon Musk is even included in this makes no sense to you, but it's part of the narrative building. You know, they've got to have their villains. They've got to have their Skeletor and their Destro.
Do you approve or disapprove of Donald Trump's handling of immigration? Disapprove by a 7-point margin. Do you approve or disapprove of Trump's managing of the federal government? Disapprove by a 15-point margin. Is Donald Trump looking out for the interests of average Americans? No, by a 17-point margin. Do you approve of Trump deporting international students who have criticized U.S. policy in the Middle East? No. Disapprove by a 20-point margin. Do you approve of Trump's handling of the economy?
Okay, she does this for another minute, and then she has a big finale here where she explains, man, everything is just bad for this guy.
In public opinion terms, he has had the most disastrous first 100 days of any president since the dawn of modern polling. No president has ever botched the first 100 days more badly than Donald Trump has botched it.
Everything's bad. Everything's terrible.
And that's true, not just for his approval rating generally and how people feel about him. It's for every single thing you ask the American public about in terms of what he has done.
Really?
Do you like any of it? No.
Every single thing that you can ask the American public about, they hate it all. There's not one thing, one question you can ask anyone in the American public that would get approval. Really? Really? Did you ask him if the people, if they approve of cutting taxpayer funding for the global warming coloring book in Malaysia? I bet you they would approve of that. What about if they approve of men and women's sports? You asked him about that and his stance on that one. What if you just reframed your immigration question? How do you think he's handling immigration? And said, well, what do you prefer? 300,000 illegals coming across our border every month or 7,000? What do you think they would choose? Do you think they would choose the number under Trump or the last number that we had under Biden? What if does Rachel Maddow's poll ask if they approve of finding 0 baggies of cocaine from the president's son in the White House? Is that in your polling questions? Does Rachel Maddow's poll ask the people if they approve of, I don't know, the Gulf of America? I know that's not important, but I'm sure you could find many things that pollsters could ask the American people where they would say something positive about Trump. She just can't admit it. And that's what a hack is. You just saw full hackery, unadulterated, on display. Does Rachel Maddow find it suspicious that every poll that you guys paid for came back with the answer you wanted? Did it bother you that all of the poll questions were asked from your angle and not my angle? And contrary to what she's saying now, if we rolled back the clocks to February, when so many of these polls were above water, how do you prove of his handling of the economy? Stock market is all-time high. How do you prove of his handling of immigration? How do you prove of his job overall? Those numbers were all above water in February. Did Rachel Maddow declare his presidency a success when the numbers were in his favor? No. She was still coming up with headlines every day about how he's a failure. She's going to say that whether the polls are up or the polls are down, whether the economy's up or the economy's down. It doesn't matter. She's a hack. So I'm going to ask you, what grade do you give Trump? I give him a B. I'm going to hear from some callers after my next guest. Victoria Churchill's back on from Young Voices. Hey, Victoria. Welcome back to the James Show. And let's hear your grade. Donald Trump's first 100 days. I give him a B. What does Victoria give him?
Yeah, I think a B plus A minus is probably where he's at. You know, he's taken some significant actions, fulfilling promises that he made on the campaign trail, but he's obviously still got a ways to go. But of course, this is kind of the classic measure, the first 100 days. It's a great way to look at the first few months of a presidency, but you also have to remember that things in Washington take a while.
Well, I also feel like it's really hard to grade someone on the first 100 days when one of the things that we're going through now, the tariff situation, is something that could be resolved within the next few weeks. And I think that would bump him up to maybe an A minus in my book.
Yeah, you know, the tariffs are definitely something that a lot of even longtime conservative Republican groups and individuals have expressed kind of some discomfort with in D.C., but you know, obviously the administration's play is that these are growing pains. These are necessary for doing things like bringing back American manufacturing. And, you know, if you look at, for example, job numbers in those segments, that is already the case. You know, they've brought back some construction jobs. They've brought back just manufacturing jobs, mining and logging jobs, as well as seeing some historic investment in the U.S. from both foreign governments and private companies. I think the latest number out of the White House was about $5 trillion. And so, you know, if you listen to the White House, if their intent is to bring jobs and creation of products back from overseas to the United States, then they would probably be considering this to be a win.
And yeah, the number is $5 trillion. The White House did a press conference, or I should say Carolyn Levitt went through a laundry list of investments that added up to about $5 trillion. And that was just right before the James Show started. So you're kind of on top of that. So explain this to me, Victoria Churchill. You give him an A-, I give him a B. We think he's doing such a good job. Why are so many of his poll numbers underwater? His approval rating, his rating on the economy, his rating on immigration, et cetera.
Well, I mean, as we've talked about before, the mainstream media will write about what they seem to be, or what they see to be the truth, regardless of how far removed that is from reality. And so, for example, on things like immigration, President Obama conducted millions of deportations during his term, but the mainstream media, conveniently for them, decides to forget about that because they have always painted Donald Trump as a very aggressive person on the front of immigration. And so, media's memory in Washington seems to be quite shallow.
Is there any chance that we can get, like maybe the network news, ABC, CBS, NBC, to stop being such hacks and return to at least an attempt of being down the road? Or are we just going to have to watch those things slowly grind themselves out of business?
Well, I think that they are grinding themselves out of business, as you mentioned, the major news channels. Of course, again, I believe we've talked about this before, kind of the aspect of the new media, independent creators, and of course, these are people that the administration has given a platform to. I think just yesterday, they were doing a special new media briefing for a lot of online personalities. But, the other thing to notice here is that with the mainstream media, they're seeing departures even from people within their own ranks going out and establishing, whether that's Substack pages or YouTube channels, podcasts, things like that. And so the frustration, I think, goes much more beyond just ideological bounds that, a lot of people that have worked in mainstream media see the fault with it. And another event that was, of course, just this weekend in Washington, D.C., the White House Correspondents' Dinner. One of the award winners from that dinner was Alex Thompson of Axios. And, he himself, he got an award for his coverage of the Biden administration. But even in his speech, he has gone around and said that, he and his colleagues should have done a better job calling out the problems with the final days of the Biden administration.
Did I see you had an article that showed up on Real Clear Politics talking about independent workers?
Yeah, I did. Yep, that was earlier this month, I believe.
Well, do I need to go click through that headline? Or what am I missing there?
Well, it actually goes, I think, pretty well along with this idea of new media because the idea of it is that people don't need to have 9-to-5 jobs, W-2 employment, that they can go out and create things on their own and make money from that. And, like I said, obviously this plays very well into the media, but this is another win, in my view, of the Trump administration is that they have some folks in the Department of Labor, the Secretary of Labor, Lori Chavez-Dramer, she's one that's kind of been back and forth on this issue, but they have an undersecretary, I call him out by name, Keith Sonderling. He's been great on the issue of allowing independent workers to continue to have contracts and in cases where they don't really want to be classed as employees. So that's one of those niche issues, which I didn't think got, kind of enough coverage. And so actually with Young Voices, I was part of their social mobility fellowship and I was able to write that up and illuminate.
Totally agree. Love it. Good work, Victoria Churchill. We know her from Young Voices, but now she's showing up in the New York Post, Real Clear Politics, and the James Show. Thank you for being on the show again, Victoria.
Thank you so much. Always great to chat with you.
All right, there she goes. So I'm asking you what I just asked Victoria. What grade would you give Trump? I have some good answers on hold, but a couple lines are open. I'd love to hear from you. I give him a B, and I don't really understand how you could give him a solid A or a solid F, but I'd be willing to negotiate with you. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Your call's next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. But as far as the first 100 days go, this is all we know. This is all we have to grade him on. I think it's a solid B. I think I could maybe give him maybe an A- if you hadn't already raised the debt ceiling $2 trillion and did the continuing resolution that keeps spending at Biden levels through September. So I feel like he's already given up like 1/4 of his presidency to the previous agenda. But I do like the border being closed. I do like the things that he's doing, whether it's officially his job or not, talking about men and women's sports. And, there's about 4 or 5 other things that you could just go down the list and be like, okay, well, yeah, that's pretty good. I feel fairly positive about that. I like the fact that his son's not a cokehead with a bunch of crazy videos out there that I find embarrassing. It doesn't have weird employment records with oligarchs in Ukraine and China. I like the fact that he went through and Doge made some cuts to USAID and the Department of Education. Now, if that gets codified, maybe his grade moves up to a B+ or an A-. But right now, I think it's a solid B. I don't know how you could give him an A or an F, though. But I'm open. You can try and convince me. 800-288-9227. Donna, Dallas, what grade would you give Trump on his first 100 days?
I know, I'm nuts, but I give him an A+ just for being in the White House.
Just for winning that?
Being there, just for sitting in the chair and being there and making us feel safe. Yeah, I think he knows what he's doing, and I think it's all going to work out in the end, and it's a little scary right now. I just know the man knows what he's doing, so I feel good that he's there.
Well, I don't think you mean just being there, but I think what the fact that he is there means the border got closed. There didn't have to be any legislation passed through Congress. Yeah. There didn't have to be any national reckoning or debate or, government shutdown or some sort of compromise resolution or anything. It really was just the fact that the right president is in that office that problem got solved. And there's probably about 10 or 12 little things like that we don't even know about because it wouldn't get reported.
Correct. I agree. But we know what he's done, and I know people are a little panicked about some of the tariffs and all that. I just think the man knows exactly what he's doing. I think this was planned in his mind. So it just gives me comfort. I feel like he knows what he's doing, and that says a whole lot over our last president.
Well, what would
We're pretty sure didn't know what he was doing.
Donna, what would it take for you to drop that grade down to at least a B?
I don't know. I mean, right this minute, the stock market's back up. There's a lot of positive things that people were nervous about. I know my husband's scared to death, but I'm just not worried about it.
Well, that degrades your credibility if you can't admit a scenario in which you wouldn't give him an A.
I can't think of one. I'm going to put it that way. Right this minute.
Fair enough. No, hey, all right. That's exactly. I asked for your opinion. You gave it to me. Good call, Donna. Thank you very much. If you want to be next, 800-288-9227. The question is, what grade would you give Trump on his first 100 days? This is Andy in Burleson. What grade do you give him? Andy. I hear nothing. All right, we'll skip out of that one. Joe in Southlake. What grade would you give Trump?
I'm giving him an A, James.
Okay. Explain yourself.
First off, he inherited Ukraine and Russia. He inherited the economy, and it took 4 years or more than that. He inherited the border issue, which was a national security issue, labeling the cartels as terrorists. That should have been done decades ago, James. As far as codifying these resolutions, different things he wants to have done, that is up to Congress. And he's already put it out there, and they are fighting amongst themselves because there's people just like you as far as spending. They don't want to spend this and that. But what he did, if anything, that's so important that all of this could be pretty much irrelevant to a degree, is national security. Being a former United States Marine, what he has done, not only saving money, millions, hundreds of billions in every state from doing what he's doing and finding out all the fraud and Doge, just like you mentioned, but that investigation is still coming to pass, and they're going to dig up a lot of dirt on that, and they know that. That is part of it. And just for the fact, Vince, if we had an attack inside this because of the millions, an army was led into this country. 2 million we have no idea who they are. And for us to sit here and act like we're going to worry about a tariff is something that the Democrats back in the early 90s, you yourself were very good. And I brought this up on another show, on Vince's show I was on, and I brought this up, in which I didn't mention your name, but you were the one who was very good about bringing all that up. There is so much that these Democrats, they know that they have dug up as far as the fraudulent spending, where the polls are. And as far as the polling, and I've heard it from Sean Hannity, I've heard it from Vince, I've heard it, I think, from another one, is that Trafalgar, I haven't mentioned, they are the most accurate when it comes to, because if I'm not mistaken, they don't ask you directly what you think. They ask what others around you and family think about it. That's how they get theirs, and they have been more accurate and at top of the line as far as coming to polling. But I respect your thinking. But if we don't have national security, we've got nothing, because what are we going to be if our infrastructure is damaged?
What would it take? What would it take for you to move him down to a B? Is there anything that could take you off of giving him an A?
No, because the Democrats.
You don't see how that degrades your credibility, though?
No. You want to know why? Because they're using the same playbook. They're doing the same thing, trying to incite riots, trying to incite civil unrest. I'm sorry, buddy.
No, you don't have to apologize for disagreeing. I'm out of time here. But that was a great call, Joe in Southlake. 800-288-9227. We'll continue. Got some other good callers, and got a good Facebook message here where people are disagreeing with my grade on Trump, because I give him a B. He's done a lot of good things. There's been a few shortcomings that prevent me from being too enthusiastic about it. Raising the debt ceiling $2 trillion, extending the spending levels of Biden through September. We still don't have the Epstein list. So I do have some complaints, but they're not good enough to knock him into an F for sure, and really not even a C. I think the tariff stuff is convulsions right now. But look, I get this comment a lot too, and someone said it when I was talking about it earlier. When I referred to tariffs, they're just a negotiating tactic. Eric says, LOL, this is on Facebook, LOL, a negotiating tactic. That's not what Trump said, but you keep licking Trump's boots, boy. Well, I know that's not what Trump said. It doesn't work as a negotiating tactic if you admit that's what it is. So if you say, hey, I'm going to put 145% tariff on all your imports until we can get a better trade deal, but I'm only going to do it for 90 days. And if you don't acquiesce in that time, I will give up and we will resume normal trade policy. Then the other side has no incentive whatsoever to negotiate. If you don't understand that, go read How to Win Friends and Influence People, and then go read Art of the Deal, and you'll see exactly what he's doing. He spells it out. Am I going to have to go pull the audiobook part of that? Because I realize I'm giving away the sauce when I say that. But I heard that from someone that was on the right too. Someone, who was that? So Eric came at me from an anti-Trump point of view. Chuck came at me. Here it is. Chuck says on Facebook Messenger, "Hi James, I so want to call in my grade C-. He's done great with everything except tariffs. He does not understand. He thinks a foreign country pays, but he's wrong. So a U.S. company buys widgets from China due to EPA restrictions. They can't be manufactured in USA. So the container arrives at U.S. port, gives it to U.S. Customs. Widget has a code scanned, and the U.S. company is charged that tariff. It is crushing, and China is hurting because we don't buy from them. It's a tax on U.S. companies that's not sustainable. He doesn't get it. We know it's not sustainable. We know he gets it. He has to create a pain point to give them an incentive to negotiate. And if he didn't create a pain point, then they have no incentive to negotiate. I think some people are just being a little obstinate on that. 800-288-9227. Back to the phones. A lot of good ones over here. Only one line open, so if you're going to call, do it quick. Gary in Newark, New Jersey, or is there Newark, Texas?
That'll be Newark, Texas, sir. How you doing, James?
Oh, did you say New York, Texas?
Newark, Newark.
Oh, okay. I don't know that one. Where's Newark?
It's Newark. It's not Newark. Newark is in New Jersey.
Well, I know, but that's what the Garrett put on the phone screening thing here.
That's why you spell it. But I live in Texas, so it's called Newark.
Well, that's way better, Gary. What grade do you give Trump?
Well, I give him a solid B. I live in a small city. We don't have any police department or law, and I can go to bed and feel safe when I do. All these scumbags that come from over in Venezuela, they're hiding. They're not trying to find a place to live and take over. They're trying to find a place to hide. So if they're not around me, I feel much safer, and he's getting them all picked up and shipped out of here like he said he would. Everything he told me he would do to get my vote, he's done so far. He told me it's going to be rough, and it is rough. And I'm going to stick with him till the very end. And a solid B. You can't get me off of it.
Well, yeah, and okay, I see where Newark is now, up there by Rome. I've actually heard of Rome before.
Well, not Italy, but
yeah. Well, Italy is down there by Waxahachie, sir. Now, jokes aside here, there are very different experiences that Americans have based on your geography. When you just said this, safety's first, and you live in a crime-free city. So do I. Out in Buck Tussle, we don't have any crime either, but some people are scared to go outside. And so, we must just be seeing completely different things on TV.
We just don't have those people in our city, and they know if they do, we're going to turn them in. If we don't turn them in, we'll probably be burying them.
Yeah, totally understood.
We don't need them.
To put some stats on that, Gary and Newark, there's something like north of 70% of the counties in America on any given year have either 1 or 0 murders. And, we would like to say 0, but there's so many exceptions to where there's a husband who kills his wife, like a murder-suicide, or some crazy mom drowns her kid in a bathtub. So you have almost exceptions that prove the rules, where for most of us, over 2/3 of the country live in a place that just doesn't have murder. We just don't have car thefts. We just don't have so many of these other problems that you see concentrated in just even medium-sized cities, much less big cities. When I grew up, I didn't see a homeless person unless we drove into Dallas, unless we drove an hour and a half west on an interstate. We might see a homeless person, but we may just have a few now out in Buck Tussle, but it's not the same at all. Vastly different experience. And you have to ask yourself why. We live under the same laws. We live under the same governance. We live under the same federal and state laws, at least. How is it really that different? 800-288-9227. We'll continue grading Trump's first 100 days next. I give him a B. What do you say? I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go to Catherine. This is Catherine in Fort Worth. What grade do you give Trump's first 100 days?
A B+.
Explain yourself, Catherine.
Okay. I'm like many of your callers. I think he's doing great. However, and the tariff thing, and I have 2 degrees, but I wouldn't be crazy enough, let's be blunt, to weigh in on that because I don't know enough about it. And if I don't know enough about tariffs, I know what they are, but if I don't know his plan and the strategy he's got going, then I feel pretty sure 95% of the public that's weighing in on it, they don't know either, So, I'm not worried about that. That's going to work itself out. But here is the reason for the B+, James.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Are you there?
Yeah. Yes, Catherine.
He was elected to send the illegals back home. There was no discussion of the criminal illegals. We thought when we elected him by mass numbers, we were saying get the illegals out of our little towns and our big towns and our schools and our stores and our Medicare people and every Social Security, everything. We wanted the illegals from anywhere to be sent back home. And that he twisted it all around. I don't remember there ever being discussion of the criminal illegal aliens. And either he's bowing down to the Democrats or I can't imagine him taking a payoff. But something has gotten in the way of what happens to deport these people. I don't care if it's the little old lady in your hometown. She's on 3 different programs with my government. She gets every darn thing she does free. And in the meantime, is disrespectful of Americans and what we have here. So they need to go. They need to go, and I'm a Christian, and it says in Romans you're supposed to do what God said for your country, be the best for your country. And everybody has a place to be on this earth. God gave everybody a place. And we're in ours, and they need to go back to theirs.
Got it. All right. I think you explained your B+ very well. Thank you very much, Catherine in Fort Worth. Maybe 3 points. Let's go to Farrell in Fort Worth. You're on WBAP. What grade do you give Trump's first 100 days?
Well, I got to give him a solid A based on 100 days.
Okay. Why A?
He's taken action to do what he said he's going to do. He eliminated the woke baloney, right?
Some of it, sure.
He's deporting criminal illegal aliens like we all want, right? He's trying to help our economy with DOGE, cut spending, right? He's talking about relieving our tax burden. I mean, I don't know, James, I heard your points, and I can't disagree with him. This is all friendly, right? But, man, I think your B's kind of weak. When you compare him to other presidents we've had in modern history and the mess he's inherited, how can you not, at this point, give him an A? Now, right, Congress has to do that.
Well, I can explain that. I don't give him an A just because the 18 presidents before him were worse on some of these issues. They just get worse than a B. And the primary driver of my B is really economics, and it's really the debt and the deficit. He's already raised the debt ceiling $2 trillion for that continuing resolution that happened a couple months ago. He continued the last Biden spending plan, which is the most inflated, overblown, highest deficit plan that we've ever had. He just extended that to September. So his whole first year is going to be spending on Biden's worst spending levels. And the thing that is kicking all of us in the teeth the most is inflation. And until we balance the budget, or at least cut the deficit in more than half, get it under control, or get it somewhere close to balance, we're still going to be getting just pummeled, absolutely pummeled by inflation, by the weakening of our dollar. Every year that we have 3% inflation, we're all getting a 3% pay cut. So over the last 3 years, you can kind of compound that down. We've all had a 10% pay cut. If you count what we had under Joe Biden, that little spike, we all had about a 15% pay cut. And so we can't continue that. I don't want another 15% pay cut. That's at least a B.
A junkie can't quit cold turkey. You got methadone. You got
disagree.
You got all this.
Junkies quit cold turkey all the time, sir.
Well, maybe not the best analogy, but do you honestly think that right off the bat that those measures are going to work? I mean, don't you economically have to have a solid plan so that the whole freaking country doesn't come to a meltdown? I mean, we're all to some degree strung out on debt, are we not? And it's not going to get reversed overnight. I think we need to
and if this comes back up at the end of September, and if he solves it then, and if he puts his foot down and becomes a little more fiscally conservative because he's totally fiscally liberal right now, then maybe his grade can move up to an A. I'm not condemning him to a forever B. Do I have time for one more? Not really. All right, you other great people on hold, stick around. You'll be next. Or if you want to jump in, 800-288-9227. What grade do you give Trump's first 100 days? I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. This is Amy in Dallas. What grade would you give him?
Well, I think I'd have to probably give him about a C-.
Oh, so that's the closest F we've had so far.
Yes, and it could be close to a D. It depends upon what he'll do.
Okay, so first off, what keeps him from being an F if you're that low?
Well, so far he hasn't made the cuts. I work for the Early Head Start program, and if he makes the cuts, it'll have to be an F. If he decides not to push that through legislation, or it doesn't pass in the Senate and the House, if they're going to make cuts to Early Head Start, then my rating will go up to an A.
Oh my goodness, that is so personally biased there, because I'm a person who you're going to hate me. Please don't hate me. No, you will. I don't think we should have ever started Head Start. I think Head Start is one of the first things we could cut and not have and have just a minimum amount of consequences. Head Start is something that's come up in talk radio for more than the 20 years that I've been doing it, and every time it's studied, they say that Head Start will show some improvement in the kids, but up past fourth grade, you can't tell which kids went to Head Start and which ones didn't. So I've always thought that it was just a kind of a naked expansion of government control over your kiddos before kindergarten, and the results that we've gotten for those dollars just aren't there.
I think that probably goes to not understanding exactly what the Early Head Start program does for children and families. We're not a daycare program, of course. I mean, we're an actually educationally based program, but we're also a social service based program. We've got to be able to continue helping children and families that are at or below the federal poverty level. And that's exactly what Early Head Start is. We don't service children that are above that are making middle to upper class income or wages.
Okay, but Amy, you can say that, but if it really was of educational import, then you would have some noticeable difference in the standardized testing results from the kids who participated in Head Start and their lower socioeconomic peers who did not.
You have more kids that are socially balanced, though, so you might not be having exactly where you need them academically to be, but no kid is exactly where they need to be academically. I mean, the United States scores way below where most countries score educationally anyway. So if you're looking at if you're looking at what they're doing, I mean, socially, it's preparing those kids to be in school. I mean,
I look at what they're doing, and I look at what their intent is, but I also look at the results, and the results just aren't on your side. And even if it was, I would still be against it, because I would say, can't we do this at the state or local level? Why does this have to be a federal program? And you don't have an answer for that.
I guess I don't.
No, that's all right.
That I'm not upset with you. I love your show. I love to watch the show. I love to listen to it. So I'm just totally, completely for the Early Head Start program. I've worked for the program for 25 years. I see what it can do for children and families.
Well, I bet you there's a lot of people out there who agree with you. So don't be shy about disagreeing with me. And for one thing, I'm wrong on a semi-regular basis. I get a lot of stuff wrong, especially as a husband. I get a lot of stuff wrong. Like, oh, what do you mean you didn't like your Christmas present? But the grade for you hinges solely on the program that employs you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty good Trump supporter.
You're not happy about closing down the border. You're not happy about deportations.
I'm extremely happy about closing the border, deportation. I'm all for that. I mean, I think we could be doing a little bit better on inflation right now. I'd like to be getting some of those prices down a little bit better, but I think good things come to those that wait, and I'm patient and I'll wait. But yeah, I mean, so maybe my call is a little bit biased. I don't know. So
okay, well, Amy, she gets 2 points. She gets the football equivalent of a safety for having the bravery to call in and just straight up disagreeing with me and then listening to my rant on why you should get fired and your program should be shut down. Oh, my goodness. I feel like such a bad person sometimes, but it's the truth. It's the truth. Let's do Kevin and No, Alex has been waiting forever. Oh, I'm sorry, Alex. Alex in Dallas, what grade would you give him?
I would say B-.
Okay. Why not an A?
Because I don't know if his rhetoric or what he says brings a lot of insecurity to the job market, a victim to being laid off. And I know he's talked about bringing manufacturing jobs, but I worked hard for my degree. I don't want to work in a factory.
What's your degree in?
That's why. Business administration.
Business administration? Well, you could be like a supervisor at a factory. How about that?
No, I understand what you're saying, but I just believe that the way he says things just brings a lot of insecurity, and that's why.
Well, I don't think it's just what he says. I think the fact that he actually turns the tariffs on, and then he turns them off, and then he turns some of them on, and then he exempts a few of them on the side. It's not just his rhetoric that's caused these convulsions. It's, millions of businessmen have to watch the moves on an almost daily basis instead of knowing what the regime's going to be at 90 days or a year from now, and they can just put their head down and pursue it. So some of this is just the natural convulsions that we can all expect from the tariff negotiations that, we're really not worried about tariffs. We're really trying to get better trade deals, something a little more reciprocal going forward. And I understand that a lot of people don't like that, but that's one thing that can be gone in 90 days. It can be gone in 6 months. Let me ask you the converse of that. So you give him a B, maybe a B-. Why not lower? Why not like a C or an F? What has he done that you like?
I do like the border security. I do like that he wants to negotiate our tariffs so that we could turn our debt around. But I would give an F if we continue to grow our debt ceiling.
Okay, love it. Thank you very much. That is Alex in Dallas. We're getting a wide swath of opinions here. Good stuff.